questions, we have 4 microphones located here. One here, one right up here, another one here, and another one here. Now, I'd like to remind you the characteristics of a good question here at the Kennedy School. First, you identify yourself. Second, you have a short phrase with one idea. And third, you end with a question mark. So with those things in mind, I will start right over here. It's on, just talk.
Hello? Okay. Magandang gabi po. Ako po si Charlie. I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer from the Philippines.
Oh,
so I'm very honored to be in your presence. I worked on education in the Philippines. I just wanted to hear from you, what are your perspectives on the education of out-of-school youth and the role of the alternative learning system in the overall agenda for education in the Philippines?
When I was briefed about the alternative learning system, this is basically a program to educate our migrant communities, meaning indigenous peoples for once, no? Do not have access or are not situated in a particular geographical location, they keep on moving. We have teachers embedded with them so that education is not stifled and is continued. Now, for the out-of-school youth, that is one of my major considerations. First, we have provided the facilities that they need to stay in school. We are incentivizing the same. The conditional cash transfer program, as the principal condition, is that children should be kept in school, not just on the elementary level, but also on the secondary level. We have expanded the program this year to cover the secondary level. We are hoping that our tech box sector, TESDA, manages programs within the high school environment to afford them a marketable skill, even if they were just to finish the high school level. So again, it's not just a request. We try to incentivize the same, and we do want to provide successful results to motivate the others to continue being in school. The ultimate aim is empowerment of everybody, and one of the principal means is through education. The budget for most of our social services have been increased in multiples from the time we started in 2010. The Department of Health, for instance, has had something like a 3-fold increase of their budget from the 2010 levels, precisely to shield our population from catastrophic illnesses that will devastate them. Thank you.
Salamat po.
Right over here.
Mr. President, my name is Rivan Royono from Indonesia. I think it's fair to say that both our countries are still haunted by ghosts of the past. I really want to know what your take on balancing reconciliation with past authoritarian regime with transitional justice, and what's your take on what I perceive to be a longing on the part of a significant % of our populace to go back to the good old stable days of dictatorship? Thanks.
Not in the Philippines, sir.
Well, in Indonesia, then. What do you think about Indonesia, then?
And even in Indonesia, to be honest with you, in Indonesia, when I talk to President Widodo, and especially the initial dialogues, when I have problems confronted by 100 million Filipinos, I look at him as a role model, because he has to contend with problems affecting 250 million Indonesians. So whatever I have, he normally has double in terms of problems. But having said that, a dictatorship can never be a good solution. The person, no matter how good intentioned, how thoroughly prepared, will have an absence of a check and balance. And again, a man is an imperfect being, so his good will happen right away, and his bad will be exacerbated. That goes with the territory. Okay, reconciliation. Currently, we have a law that is being implemented, which is called the Human Rights Compensation Bill. And it talks about, first and most importantly, recognition that the state that should have nurtured and protected its citizens was at one point its oppressors. And after that, there is an award for, recognition of the same, so that there is, in a sense, compensation for what was inflicted upon our people. Now, the end result of this also will be putting on the record individual accounts of what rights they had that were violated during our dark days of martial law. The end point being, we learn the lessons so that we do not have a situation that repeats itself, that really brought our country to the depths that it had entered into.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Right up over here.
Hi, my name is Marvin Bionat. I'm from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I'm also a registered overseas Filipino voter, so very interested in
Thank you.
Filipino affairs. My question is about inclusive growth. Compared to our Asian neighbors, the poverty rate in the Philippines is still kind of high. I mean, we're at like 25% or so. And that's very high compared to our neighbors where poverty rates is in the single digits. And also in terms of unemployment, when you started it was like 6.9 and it's still close to 7, maybe 6.7. But that's still very high compared to our neighbors where unemployment is around 4 or under. So my question is, despite all the good gains, and you should get credit for all the economic gains that we have achieved, is there anything new or anything innovative that you're doing to make growth and economic progress more inclusive?
Well, I did mention one, that we are expanding that conditional cash transfer program and the incentive scheme to the high school level. If you had noticed in the speech, for instance, the tech box sector, which started out with a 28.5 placement rate, is now averaging 68.5%. And in particular categories, it reaches up to 91 and 93%. Perhaps I can just differentiate from what we had to what we now have. Okay. My predecessor, for instance, claimed that there was no shortages of classrooms. And what was the solution? You had 3 shifts that were utilizing the same classroom. The 8-hour day became 4-hour periods. Now, some of our youngsters were going home very late at night just to be able to say that there was no classroom shortage. We inherited that backlog of 66,800 classrooms. The budget cannot support more than 8,000 construction per year. I get a 6-year term. I produce 48,000, or the government produces 48,000. We still leave it with a deficit where children cannot have the right facilities. That backlog has been eliminated in the 3rd year. We are now actually building for the expanded K-12 program. Now, granted, the numbers are still high. One would want full employment. But where were we compared to where we are now? Again, there's a figure of 1.6 million new jobs, net new jobs, in a period only between 2013 and 14, 2012, 13. Sorry? July 2013 compared to July 2014 figures is, again, net new jobs of 1.6 million. So we cannot get jobs when you have unskilled people. Hence, all of the investments, again, in TESDA, CHED, in coordination with industry, to seek what they need so that there are jobs that are waiting for our citizens when we get in. Now, part of the problem, and I think you will have to give me a little allowance, people were chasing for careers that were supposed to be hot when they entered college, only to find out that they were over people by the time they graduated. You know of tragedies wherein people took 2 courses only to find out that they were repeating the same mistake, chasing after jobs that were not existent. So we inherited that backlog. We are trying to retrain that population, and we are doing all of this while operating under a deficit and with practically no resources when we started.
Just a quick question.
Please,
Mr.
I'm
President.
sorry. Just
Okay.
one per customer.
Okay.
I apologize. Right over here.
Magandang gabi po.
Magandang
Good
gabi.
evening. My name is Carlino Mark Natividad, and I'm a junior here at Harvard College and co-president of the Harvard Philippine Forum. On behalf of the Harvard Philippine Forum, we actually wanted to present you with this Harvard souvenir shirt.
Thank you. Thank you. Now I have one. Thanks.
And my question is, with regards to the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, the EDCA, how do you see this enhancing the role of the Philippines in the region, and how do you see this in America going forward?
Well, we have a mutual defense treaty with America dating to the 1950s. But to a large degree, the operationalization of the same leaves a lot to be desired. A lot of times when they're confronted with a new issue, there are so many dialogues to happen, that need to happen to clarify exactly what each other's roles are. So as far as the Philippines is concerned, the enhanced cooperation means that we will have access to all of this 21st technology. And if not just to possess it, but at least to be able to understand and utilize the same. With the end point being that we get to manage situations a lot better. And that, again, the roles of the respective partners are more clearly defined, leading, hopefully, to joint cooperation that enhances stability within the region.
Salamat po.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. President. My name is Mary Brooks, and I'm a sophomore at the college. As you mentioned, approximately 10% of the Filipino population currently lives abroad. So my question for you is, what has been the relation of the state to those populations abroad? And what effects, beyond, of course, attempts to create new jobs, has their presence abroad had upon the economy and upon government policy?
Well, the positive effect of all of this population abroad is the remittances have really provide quite a huge source of hard currency. Of course, the unwritten risk is that there are, especially for families that have both parents outside of the country, having their children being raised by relatives, normally grandparents, there might be societal costs that will be borne out by not strengthening the nuclear family. Okay. The ultimate goal for our government is that if you choose to work abroad, then that is the operative word. You chose rather than you were forced because of a want of opportunities in the Philippines. So the immediate things that we had to do were to find or identify what we call the low-lying fruits. What investments can be made, or what incentives can be made to have investments that have positive results for our people right away. Let me give you one example. One of the focal areas or sectors for the economy that we are really developing is tourism. We believe that in tourism, you don't have to be two-lettered to be able to participate at various levels of it. So in support of that, hopefully you've managed to come across our marketing campaign about It's More Fun in the Philippines. But more importantly, we're developing the infrastructure that supports that particular industry. Roads to make tourism destinations that much more accessible. Pocket open skies, which means that the National Capital Region is the only area where our entries are still restricted, no? But the rest of the country is open. We're building or improving about 8 major airports to sustain the momentum that's happening. And the results are, by this year, we'll be from 3 million tourists, foreign tourist arrivals, we'll be doing about 5, which means we seem to be on target to hit the 10 million bracket by 2016. In terms of domestic tourism, the figure of 35 million domestic tourists by 2016 was surpassed in 2012 by, I think it became 36 million domestic tourists. We think we will have 56 million domestic tourists by 2016. And we go back, you preserve the tourist sites, you empower everybody upstream and downstream of the tourism industry. Of course, you have a good marketing campaign to make people aware that such things exist in the Philippines. And that is, again, an industry low-lying because it redounds to immediate benefits for people. Of course, the other interventions were agriculture and infrastructure. Both as a provider for work for our people and also for the induced investments that infrastructure will bring in, food security for agriculture and improved production are the penultimate goals. And again, the end point being empower the people, provide more and more opportunities so that this growth becomes more and more inclusive. Yeah, at the end of the day, with any decision we make, we ask, how does this improve the lot of our countrymen? Thank you.
Right up here.
Magandang gabi po. My name is Alex Orquiza. I'm a member of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences here at Harvard, and I'm from San Jose, California. President Aquino, now that you're nearing the end of your term, who do you consider possible successors in upholding an honest Philippine national government? And what would you say to your critics who say, while you're committed to honesty, some of your allies are not?
Well, the courts are open. If they think that I have dishonest people around me, then all they have to do is file appropriate case. So, the Ombudsman in particular, I think, even investigates instances where complaints are unsigned or anonymous, precisely to ferret out those who are not treading the correct path. So, as to naming who I think would be a good successor, I really believe we have a lot of material in the country. But if I were to mention them now, then I'm sure you can you can imagine the repercussions back home as media friends. And perhaps, as I keep saying, now is not the time. I still have about a year and 9 months to go. And if we are concentrated on, if we are all concentrated on just the next elections rather than doing the things that we have to do now, No, we shouldn't allow the distraction of the election to interfere with our obligations to our people. When I left Manila, there was a typhoon that was affecting our weather. Mayon volcano is starting to be restive, and there was a second typhoon whilst I'm still not back home. So I think those have to be attended rather than jockeying for position in 2016. Thank you.
Right up here.
Hi, Mr. Aquino. Thank you so much for coming to Harvard and give us a lecture. So my name is Ko Ching, and I'm from School of Public Health. So I'm really inspired by your story and your father's story of fighting against dictatorship. But my question is about the South China Sea dispute. In China, both the government and the people believe that the Philippines is behaving more like a surrogate of the United States to contain the rise of China. And what's your take on that? And in your speech, you mentioned about why not. So I was wondering, instead of confronting Chinese government and play the game of United States of containing Chinese rise, why not, cooperate with Chinese government or talk with them proactively to settle down those issues, or simply put those issues aside and develop those islands as a tourism destiny or oil field exploration? Because I believe there is more synergy between China and United States, between Philippines and China.
I think we've got the question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So,
And thank you for the question. Cooperate with China. We believe in its peaceful rise. We'd like to, in the start of the dispute, we did mention there can be no prosperity if it is not inclusive. And prosperity can only happen in an environment of stability. Okay, having said that, in 2011, I had the state visit to the People's Republic of China, wherein we pointed out to them that the Philippine corporations invested something like $2.5 billion in China. China had invested at that point in time $600 million in the Philippine economy. We sent something like 800,000 tourists their way. They send us 200,000. Okay. Now, so the relationship is very, very beneficial to China, and we also benefit from the same. Now, where is the dispute? The dispute centers on the so-called 9-dash line. And why not talk to China? We keep talking to China. When we were asked not to escalate the dispute so that the respective constituencies, the publics will not have inflamed passions, we tried to de-escalate the situation. I think we've never discussed, for instance, public, at least the government has never said, that in our issue in the Scarborough Shoal, wherein Scarborough Shoal we maintain is within our 200-mile exclusive economic zone. And there were fishermen that were spotted eventually from China, or were discovered to be from China. They were capturing species listed in the treaty called CITES, which is the Convention on International Trade on Endangered Species. So I understand they're also signatories to the same. They also should not be catching it. And unfortunately, certain agencies of the Chinese government prevented our law enforcement agencies from effecting detention so that they could be processed under the laws on poaching. Now, we keep talking to them. Their proposals never change, which is let's have bilateral discussions on the matter. In the Spratlys chain alone, there are 4 countries, excuse me, there are 4 countries in ASEAN, which is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, who are claimants. You add China and Taiwan, so you have 6 countries. 6 countries with, who have conflicting claims poses a multilateral problem, I think you will agree. So how can a bilateral agreement between 2 of the 6 bind the other 4? So there's no stability in the same. All we're saying is there was a dialogue in 2002 between ASEAN and China that tried to come up with a code of conduct on the South China Sea. That they failed, they came up with the Declaration of Conduct, which is a set of principles to guide, but not a binding set of rules and regulations. In 2012, we reiterated, all of us are saying we want to conform to international law, then why shouldn't we adhere to what is stipulated in UNCLOS, and then at the same time, finish the code of conduct that everybody says they want. And at the end of the day, we all know our entitlements and our obligations and how we're supposed to deal with each other. So one last point, the 9-dash line, again, you cannot identify a position with dashes. It has to be points connected to other points. So when you actually plot where these dashes are, nobody, I think, can categorically state that they correspond to a particular longitude and latitude. Now, we are defending our rights. Our Constitution tells me that I cannot give up our sovereignty. I have no leeway in that matter. We don't want trouble with anybody. We want to spend, in the classic argument in economics of guns versus butter, we really want to devote all our resources to butter. But at the same time, we have to contend with the realities that exist on the ground. And if we don't fight for our rights, we don't expect anybody else to fight for them. So I hope that is recognized, that if the situations were reversed, if we were the big economic power, if we were the big military power, then they would ask us to respect the rights. So that's the only thing we're asking. Let's respect each other's rights. Let's do right by each other and be fair with each other. Then that is the basis for stability for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Right here.
Good evening, Mr. President.
Good evening.
My name is David Rose. I'm a first-year Master in Public Policy here at the Kennedy School. And in a former life, I was an officer in the U.S. Navy. And in November, I was actually on the ground in Leyte providing support to the brave soldiers of the Philippine Army to provide humanitarian assistance to the people that were impacted by the typhoon. Now, I saw firsthand the benefits of our historic friendship between the U.S. and the Philippines. And my question is, what is your long-term vision for ways in which the U.S. and the Philippines can work together to overcome kind of the troubles that we had in the 90s when we had to withdraw from Subic Bay and the Clark base? And how do you think we can move forward with our relationship in the long term?
Well, your former ambassador actually said that there is no need to revisit where we were, or is the American intention to go back to where it was? Now, we start off from, why do we have a strategic partnership with America? It started out with the shared values, the shared aspirations, even a shared system of governance. So proceeding from that, and as to where we want to go to, seems to be the natural course for both our countries. There are benefits of this relationship with each other. Now, at the end of the day, government goes where its people wants it to go. And a lot of surveys in our country state that the overwhelming majority of our people look kindly upon America, do not dwell on instances where we had our issues with each other, and see in America the best chance for maintaining the way of life that we want and we are accustomed to. So again, I don't think the way it was explained to me by various officials of your government, is there a need for you to maintain bases within the Philippines? But the presence of the sharing of intelligence, for instance, sharing of training facilities, joint exercises, suffices to make the defense treaty more than the paper it's worth, more worthy than the paper it's written on. I will have to excuse myself for if sometimes I pause. This is, I think, close to my 80th engagement from the time I left the country. Even my writers are kind of suffering a little fatigue, and they're a lot younger than me. Thank you.
Thank you. Right over here.
Good evening, Mr. President.
Good
My
evening.
name is Shintaro Fauzia. I'm a Harvard Law student from Indonesia. Let me first say that I admire Philippines' commitment on the protection of rights of your indigenous people through the enactment of IPRA. My question would be, what is your vision and Philippines' plan to enhance the protection of rights of the indigenous people following national and international critics on the protection of rights of the indigenous people? Thank you.
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, growth has to be inclusive, and empowerment is the key to it. Now, we discussed the alternative learning systems. In fact, there was a recent video that was shown to me of somebody who had discovered her rights under IPRA precisely because of the alternative learning system. So we don't wait, in that particular setup, we don't wait for them to situate themselves in a community that they can go to school every day. Our Department of Education has sought fit to find volunteers who are willing to join them as they have their nomadic way of life, to be able to continuously provide the education setup for all of their children. Now, look at the Bangsamoro Basic Law that is proposed before Congress. There is a 10% reserve allocation for both the indigenous and women's groups to compose 10% again of the parliament that is going to be set up under this particular, again, to ensure that they will have that particular voice. The basic law also takes into cognizance their dispute mechanisms as part and parcel of our legal system in terms of resolving all of these disputes. And the list goes on and on. But on the other side, there has to be also perhaps a rethinking of the issue of ancestral domain. No? Sometimes the agencies, when they try to map out which is part of the ancestral domain and which is not, create overlapping maps that leads to confusion by every party concerned and a diminution of the ability of the state to protect the rights, especially of the indigenous people. So that is presently being corrected. Thank you.
Right up here.
Ganda Gambe po. My name is Genevieve Clutario, and I'm a faculty member in the Department of History here. And I'll keep my question brief. So I'm just curious about the fate of the reproductive health law and whether the Philippines will even have a real family planning bill given the opposition of the Catholic clergy. And I wanted to know what you think about that and what you hope for the future for this bill.
Okay, the bill has passed. It's actually law. It was challenged in the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And I read in today's, I get a series of news capsules from back home. And the Department of Health was already announcing specific activities in implementation of the reproductive health law. Now, the major issue is we have a population of 100 million now. When I started into office, population growth rate was something like 2%, which means about roughly about now 2 million every year new Filipinos. So, from our perspective, the bill's merit primarily said, parents have reminded parents you have responsibilities towards your children, and we will respect your conscience, what your faith and your belief says about how you are to plan your family. We will support you and not dictate to you, and that has been embodied in this law, which we are now going to implement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right up here.
So, sorry, not going to implement. We are now implementing. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, kamusta po? My name is Vanessa De Guia. I am a student at Harvard Graduate School of Education. I'm wondering what federal policies or efforts are being made specifically for Filipino Americans to come home to the motherland and serve.
Well, okay. Well, for instance, in education, perhaps I can use that as an example. No? We expanded our basic education setup from a 10-year program to, in effect, we call it the K to 12. So it's K plus 12 years to make it up to par with international standards and give our youth the ability to imbibe all of the knowledge that they will need to succeed in this world. That has opened up so many positions in our teaching profession that have to be filled up. So as a result of that, there are about 300 already who have gone as OFW and worked in professions other than teaching, who have finished their certifications and are just finishing the contracts that they have currently before joining our Department of Education as teachers, especially in the K-12 program, expansion program. Now, when we're trying to recover our engineers, our scientists, etc., so it's multifaceted. Scholarships for going back, well, scholarships after service to the state. We're trying to get the laboratories, some advanced laboratories, and other facilities that they need that prompted them to leave, established in the Philippines, tying up with a lot of prestigious universities and colleges so that they can continue their basic research at home rather than go abroad. And the list goes on and on. I'm sorry, I can't recall all of the details at this time. Thank you.
Right down over here.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Frank Uriferzo. I'm a student at the Graduate School of Design here. We should talk because this question is very similar. But I'm researching the link between diasporas and development, and where one question asked about the Filipino citizens working abroad. I was wondering how you envision actively engaging the millions of people of Filipino descent who are citizens of other countries.
Actively engage. I'm sorry, I don't get the question, sir.
How do you envision engaging people who identify as Filipino but are not Filipino citizens, people who want to play an active role in the development of the country?
Well, number one, for instance, in America, I keep reminding the Filipino communities here, or those who trace their descent, it really would be helpful if we could get united. If the 3.5 million that we do have here acted as one rather than separate entities. In various other communities across the world, our Department of Foreign Affairs is the lead agency assisted by the Labor Department, but primarily the DFA organizes all our communities to be helpful towards one another. And at the end of the day, they're also the principal means, working through various organizations to extol the opportunities that are existing already back home. Now, we do seriously engage all of our communities, building up their organizations so that their rights are adequately protected and the opportunities are announced to one and all. But again, currently, the emphasis is growing our economy, increasing the opportunities to be had back home to prevent even more of the diaspora from happening. Thank you.
We're going to have time for just 3 more questions. Right, here's the first.
Magandang hapon, Presidente. Maraming salamat pagdating nyo. Ako po ay si Frank Silosa. Ako po ay organizer dito sa Boston. My question to you is, when you announce your candidacy, some of us in America campaign for Neumar because we believe and we hope that by the reputation of your mom and dad, we'll be able to have a president who is reputable and clean and honest. So you didn't disappoint us.
Thank you.
Thank you. My question to you is desperately. China is claiming under 9-dash line that it belongs to them since 1200, I think. If we subscribe to that logic, Italy can claim Germany and France because in the early years they were part of the Roman Empire, and that's no basis to claim a particular land. Bajo de Masinloc is only 125 miles from the Philippines that our fishermen have been fishing there for hundreds of years, and it's 600 miles from China. My question to you is, the geodetic survey said that we have at least 40 billion barrels of oil underneath that land, enough to surpass Kuwait. With millions of people toiling in the foreign lands and being abused by the Middle Eastern amo and their masters, my question to you is, are you bringing the question of the dispute with UNCLOS in the United Nations when you speak tomorrow? Because I think that's the only way we can put pressure to the Chinese government to bring it, to get together, because we will never be able to fight China with their armaments. Would you?
Yes, sir, the topic tomorrow is more on global climate change rather than these territorial disputes. And we are actually involved already in arbitral proceedings before the International Tribunal on the Law of the Seas, which is, in effect, a UN body through UNCLOS. It is the arm that settles disputes and to interpret the provisions of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Seas. And I think that is already doing what you are suggesting, sir. Thank you.
Right here, and this will be the last question over there.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Mr. President. My name is Ida. I'm a second-year graduate student here at the Kennedy School. We're honored to have you here. There is a perception that that in the Philippines there's strong political dynasties at the local and the national level. So, do you think that the Philippines will benefit more from having less political dynasties? And if so, how can elections be more inclusive of people who do not come from political dynasties? Thank you.
Okay, well, first of all, there is already measures before Congress, and I have vowed to pass the anti-dynasty law in furtherance of the Constitution. And to be honest with you, it's perhaps when the framers of our Constitution put that provision in, the definition of the problem was not as well done as could have been done. For instance, you know that our society values reputation, having a good name, etc. So if you are assuming there were free and open elections and they were credible, then you had somebody who had the same surname win, then perhaps it is a testament to the person who came beforehand. But in this particular case, and not because I'm also somewhat of a politician, it seems that the rights for everybody are universal except for politicians. If you're a politician, you shouldn't be allowed an opportunity for public office. If you're a politician, your life should not just be an open book. It should also be examined on the subatomic level. If you're a politician, you're expected to take all of the criticism and keep on smiling. But anyway, having said that, there are instances when economic, political, and sometimes even judicial power are in the hands of a particular family, where the playing field is no longer open. And some rights may have to be sacrificed. For instance, when you talk about freedom of speech, it's not absolute. You can't say fire in this hall. So perhaps I'm sure a lot of politicians will say, okay, to forestall the possibility that there will be abusive situations, then perhaps we should make sure that at some points in time, perhaps after the term limits, then there is a whole new set who will be bringing in ideas that hopefully will build upon that which was already developed. At the end of the day, new blood does bring new ideas, new methodologies, new energies that perhaps can improve on that which was already set. Thank you.
Last question right up here.
Magandang gabi po,
Magandang gabi po.
Mr. President. Joseph Bayana from Alexandria, Virginia. Using the accumulated knowledge of mankind coming from the 150 million volumes of the Library of Congress, from Adam Smith to Ricardo to all the Nobel Peace Prize economics winners, I just wanted to ask, why are you purchasing arms from Canada, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, and the United States, knowing that in the United States and all these other countries, security and defense is an industry. It creates jobs. It expands the economy. Loudoun County, Virginia, it's a beautiful place. But why would you buy arms knowing that it does not create jobs, nor does it expand the economy of the Philippines?
Well, okay. Are we buying a lot of arms or most of it arms? No? Perhaps in absolute numbers, we're buying rifles for our armed forces to the tune of about 50,000. We have a 250,000 security sector. They have weapons that are Vietnam era vintage, and that's not the tail end of the Vietnam War era. That's the earlier part. Okay, we have ships, 132, most of them World War II, if not all of them. No, I can't say all of them. There are like 5 or so. We have a 36,000-kilometer coastline. No, and you're asking this, 70-year-old, 80-year-old ships to do the protection. We need interconnectivity between our islands. 7,100 of them. We need the choppers and the aircraft to bring in the relief goods. No, before you ask, no, let me finish. Sir, I think I listened to you.
With all due respect.
No, please, come on. I gave you a chance. Please. Just let the president answer. We're not here to listen to you. Thank you. Please. One question. Same rules as everyone. Okay, thank you.
Sir, I'm not.
Please, we're going to have to ask you to leave. Okay, thank you.
Well, again, you're talking in generalities. Please look at the shopping list and tell us how much of the budget has gone into arms, and how much of it is for equipment that we do need to service our people.
Mr. President, I'd like to give you a chance to answer a question that are on many people's minds here, which is many of the people here are students who would love to be exceptional public leaders. Do you have any words of advice for them of how to do such a thing?
I'm still learning myself, but at the end of the day, I start off with a simple premise. You can get involved or you can be apathetic. When you're apathetic, what happens to you? Then I guess you don't have the right to complain. You accepted that others will make the decisions for you. You can, on the other hand, be active and shape that which comes after. And I guess the choice seems to be really, really very simple. And the more people actively working for the common good, translates into getting to where we want to go faster rather than suffering the status quo that doesn't serve the vast majority. So I go back. It's always a choice. Don't worry about the uncertainties of the things that come before you. I'm a Catholic. We tend to believe that we are required to do that which we can, and God will take care of that which we cannot. And when I look back at the life that we have had to undergo, perhaps if I was given a menu or a list, these are the things and the tragedies that will befall you from this point to that. This will be the challenge. I probably would have said, perhaps you can pass that on to the next guy. But there really seems to be that plan, that will prepare you for the next step, that will help you overcome. Again, when I went home, I guess I can put it that way, and because I'm being asked to address the youth. My father was killed, I was 23 years old. I could have stayed out of the country and said, that country is not worth fighting for, not worth living for. You allowed this tragedy to happen to my dad. It's nothing to you. But the point was, I really couldn't live with myself and say, after all that he had undergone, nothing changed. That was not acceptable. So I crossed that particular line and said, I really have to do whatever I can to be able to finish that dream and to make his sacrifice have some meaning. And up to this day, his sacrifice, my mother's sacrifice, so many of our people's sacrifice continues to inspire me. Whenever I'm confronted with a very big problem, all I need to do is go back and say, look, they had it worse, and they overcame. Should I be complaining that I'm having it a little easier when I can do more of the same? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.